So, J.R., welcome. Congratulations. A meritorious official for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame this year. And just quick question. I mean, let's get your start going in wrestling. How did you find the sport, or did it come find you? How'd that all work out?
I found it in elementary school when I was living in Chicago. I got asked by a couple friends to join the team, and I didn't know anything about it. And that's where I started from, and just fell in love with it from the get-go.
When did you realize that it was something you were going to do for many years, or get involved? Was it the actual competition? Did you find some successes, or is there certain elements about the sport of wrestling that matched who you were?
It was a little bit of both. I was very fortunate to win a couple tournaments, but at the same time, I was very hyper as a youngster, and so it kind of calmed me down a little bit. And I love the hard work. It was just different from any other sport that I had participated in, and as I got older, it just kept growing and growing on me, and that's where it just festered from there.
Did you have some mentors, people within wrestling that really encouraged you when you were a youth or in high school to get better, to set high goals?
Actually, I did. I spent the summers in Oklahoma at the OSU training camp, and that's where I really got the bug, per se. And I just, every summer I'd come out and go to the Cowboy 28-day intensified camp, and it just made me.
Kind of ironic when you're down here as an athlete. Do you ever think you might go next door in the Hall of Fame?
It's very ironic, because that was during high school, and my first, and I don't want to say major, but one of my first big duels was Iowa Okie State here in Stillwater. And I was even talking to my wife about it when we were looking at the timeline and figuring out what to say and so on and so forth. It just seemed kind of eerie that, high school, I spent my summers here, and then my first match here, duel. I had other duels back home in the East, but I say the big one, and it was, now I'm back over here doing this, and it's just unbelievable. It's very humbling.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how things work out over time, right?
Yes.
You competed in college too, right? Talk
Yes,
a
sir.
little bit about how your college career went, and obviously after wrestling as a competitor, you stayed around. You stayed in the sport.
I wanted to stay relevant. I was a mediocre college wrestler. I just wasn't as skilled as most, and the program at the time in that college was more of a club program. It wasn't where it is nowadays. Let's put it that way.
Well, you're at Tech, right?
Yes, sir.
Right now, they're top 5, top 10.
Right. We were nowhere near top 5, but it was, we had a great group of guys. We still got them from all over the East Coast, and we were competitive, but it was nothing like it is now. So, and after I graduated, I just wanted to stay with the sport, and I just started volunteering at the local high school when I moved back to my hometown, Richmond, from Blacksburg. And I kind of got bored once again with just going to the same practice every day. And so somebody recommended that I give a shot at refereeing, and I had never even thought about it. And so took my test and then started doing matches. And I just liked seeing the different matches each Friday. And, back then, Friday night dual meets and quads and stuff like that. And the 2-day tournaments were really big. So it was really a difference. Let's put it that way. So I didn't see the same kids all the time, and I got to travel, and I just couldn't believe that they were paying me to do something that I love so much.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you found it enjoyable, which is not always the case. I mean, officiating's difficult. I mean, you got to pay attention, you got to make the right call, you got to have some guts to stand by what you believe is the correct call. And some people have a niche for it. Did you feel when you started doing it more and more that you were establishing some skill sets and had a potential to do it well and do it for a long time?
I was fortunate to have been mentored by quite a few very good officials. Mike McCormick, his dad, Dr. Pat, Chris Giles really helped me out in the high school level, and then I started traveling. Referees back then in the high school level didn't travel quite as much as they do now, and started doing some of the Beast of the East, and got to see some better officiating, better wrestling than what I was used to in the Virginia area. So as I moved up and saw the different levels, it made it more enjoyable to me. Once again, first thing that most of the referees complain about is what they got paid for a 2-day tournament, and I was just happy to be there and enjoy the atmosphere and the competitiveness of because I just wasn't used to it.
Well, like an athlete, you progress, right? As an
Yes, sir.
official, you progress, and you start at a certain level, and then you get new opportunities, and they keep moving on. I mean, and you ended up not just doing the high school or local, but you ended up going and doing college and major college. Do you remember what you think might have been one of your most important early events where you realized that, hey, there's an ability that I can continue to
Probably
go and-
the Virginia duels.
Okay.
At that time.
Great event. right?
Yes, and at that time, Mike and his dad used to bring in, powerhouse college teams and powerhouse high school teams, but I started to do the high school and the college at the same event.
Mm-hmm.
And then as time progressed each year, I think last year when I got hurt was the first year that I've missed the Virginia duels in 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to see that, a lot of good wrestling that was brought to me by the Virginia duel group.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helped me get used to seeing that level. And then I did my first stint with the CAA, and that lasted a year. And then they asked me to move over to the Big Tens, and then it just grew from there.
Well, yeah, Big Ten is a great conference, right? I mean, nowadays when you watch that on a weekly basis, it's like highlights for the whole country as far as wrestling goes. Did you enjoy having to be the person out on the mat in that kind of atmosphere with big crowds and a whole lot of intensity? Is that something that motivated you to continue to do it and get better?
It was. The crowd really plays into it. It's you're not supposed to let the crowd play into it, but it happens when you have the crowd that you get at the Big Tens. We've always talked amongst ourselves, the referees, doing the Big Ten tournament is just unbelievably hard. It's probably the hardest tournament of the year, mm-hmm. just because of the competitiveness and how tough it is mentally and physically for 2 days. We don't get a break like the kids do. I'm not saying that theirs is harder than ours or easier than ours, but it is, we match after match for, days, and we have to stay focused that whole time. So it's fun when it's over, because then you can look back and say that you did it. So, physically I couldn't do what those kids do, but it's hard staying focused for that long a period of time. And they're so evenly matched now, you don't get pins in the Big Ten.
No, you're talking elite athletes in every round, right?
Right.
So, do you remember your first Division I championships, what it was like to be out there for the first time in the big show?
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable. The hardest part is when you hear the crowd go crazy, mm-hmm. cheer when a team pins another team, and not. The first thing that everybody told me is you can't look over.
Yeah,
you have to stay focused on your match.
You're not there as a fan, right?
You're not there as a fan, and that was I looked over too many times. Let's put it that way. You got caught up in another match, and it was fun, but it was a lot more mental uh-huh. than it was the physical for me. Just because I needed to make sure that I stayed focused on my match, and and the crowd plays a lot into it. That's a unique environment. It's just like the tens. It's somebody gets pinned or somebody gets upset. You're almost. People ask me how the NCAAs went last weekend or the weekend before or this past year, and I tell them I didn't see much of it. You only see the match in front of you. So there's a lot of upsets that I read about, just like the guys that are up in the stands.
Right, yeah, you go at night, you get on the internet and say, hey, what happened? I know I was on the floor there, but...
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, but you've done what, 20?
Yes, somewhere around there.
That puts you like the longest tenured right now, right?
I don't know about that.
Close,
it's up there. I've done quite a few.
There aren't a lot of people that have gotten 20 NCAA tournaments. I mean, how has it progressed in your career? Do you feel like because you've been able to do so many, it's allowed you to get better and better and even have more, respect for what you're doing, right?
It's actually, it's slowed the action down for me.
Okay.
Mike McCormick told me a long time ago, when I was watching him do these matches, and the same with Mike Haggerty, the two guys that I watched more growing up once I got to college, just to see what they were doing and, looking at how they adapted to the skill set of the wrestlers and at the table. That was, nowadays when I talk to young officials, it's easy to call a 2 takedown per se. It's, I want to see them go to the table and how they handle themselves at the table with the coaches.
Right.
Because you got the coaches, they're doing what they should do. They're fighting for the student athletes. But you got to make sure that you're fair, and at the same time, you got to, if they're wrong, or if you disagree, you can disagree and still be professional about it. So watching Mike, when I was first starting off, and Pat Fitzgerald as well, it's, it just seems like everything was just continuation. It's so slow to them. They didn't look like they got rattled, and it was, that was where I was trying to get. And then I've said all along to everybody, people ask me what motivates me, and it's, I want to catch those 3.
Yep.
When I say that, I know I'm not probably going to be as good as them ever, but at the same time, it's just nice. It gives me a benchmark to go for,
Certainly, I mean, it'd be hard to have the kind of commitment you've had over the years without having something that drives you to get better and do it more, right? You were telling me you did some freestyle Greco kind of officiating during the parts of your career. How did that as an official help you when doing a different rule set, doing it in a different situation? I mean, obviously, the high school season, college season is real intense. Sometimes the freestyle Greco season is a little more relaxed, but these kids and their families are really committed to being there. What was the experience like for you to be part of that?
I truly think that the referees of today should do some freestyle and Greco. I know it's two different sports. Mm-hmm. I think it helped me out. It made me get better in different areas. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to run when you're on the mat, on a freestyle mat. You have 2 other officials. I was very fortunate to do a women's national championship and a U.S. Open and some other big matches as well. So I got to see different styles, but at the same time, it was, I had to learn a different sport, but you're still out there doing wrestling. It was, I think it's good for you. I think that all young officials should do 2 or 3 years, with some good freestyle officiating and get mentored, at the national level, U.S. Opens and the regionals and stuff like that. I think that would help them out, and then decide which one you like and which one you wanted to go with. I enjoyed the folk style more personally. It was at the time. It better suited me. I thought I was better at it and enjoyed it more personally. So that's when I decided, and I was just starting to, not starting to, but I just got married. So after I left, college, it was kind of hard 1 week later saying I'm leaving to go start freestyle, and that lasts all summer. Yeah. And then, then the fall hits and you're back into the folk style. So it was, I didn't have to make a choice, but I wanted to make a choice. Sure. And that's why I chose folk style. So,
NCAA finals, right? Yeah. You get selected, right? You've done some of the final matches, I'm sure, right? Mm-hmm. What's that like? I mean, it's you know that it's not a full stadium with 8 mats like earlier in the rounds, and it's your job to get it right. How do you prepare for that? Because the coaches and athletes are going to be prepared to the max.
Well, you're in that situation. You're lucky because of the 10 mats. 10 matches, you have 10 officials and then 10 assistants. Your 10 assistants are still top 20 guys. So you have somebody out there that's got your back, helps you out. I used to, if I couldn't get a final when I was young, first thing I would ask if they would give me a choice to Mike's dad was, I just wanted to assist Mike. Mm-hmm. I just felt a comfort level, and it's you get to see good wrestling, and it's the little things that make a difference at that point in time in the championships. That's all the eyes are on you. Mm-hmm. It's very intense, and the crowd is watching one mat instead of half of them watching one mat, and you got 8 mats going, and everybody's watching that one. So
Yeah.
it's a little, it's hard to describe until you get out there the first time, and then the first takedown.
Yep.
And you hear that roar, and it's deafening. It's definitely a different feeling.
I mean, you ever go home back to Virginia and say, "Hey, I saw you on ESPN last night," right? Has that happened?
Lately, and I think it's helping the referees out. Yes, it happens all the time. Even now with the Big Tens being on so much, and now that the ACCs have their own network, and they're playing wrestling, there's just so much in the flow. I get it quite often, to be honest with you, and at first it was humbling because they used to just walk up and ask, what were you thinking about this? And it was almost like they were questioning me. And it's awkward when I'm out with my wife and daughters, and somebody wants to talk about the match, this past weekend. But I think it's good for the sport. Personally, I do, because it's on TV so much more. It's teaching kids that weren't in the areas, the states that don't have really strong wrestling backgrounds. If you're in Pennsylvania, it's pretty much, it's understood. Everybody knows about wrestling.
Yep,
You get in
absolutely.
some of the southern states where I moved, and it's just growing. And I think that's also the part, it's going to help if they can get more female wrestling matches on TV, just because it's going to build from there, and people get a chance to watch it, as they're flipping through the channels, or it's wrestling, they just want to see what it looks like. And then I think it's going to help the whole sport. So to answer your question, yes, it was nice going back, unless it was a controversial call, and then it was a little different when somebody says, "I think I saw you this weekend."
Well, but you were ready for it, right? So had a conversation anyway.
Yes.
Really, it's kind of like, as an official, you've got to be able to just move forward, regardless of what your last match or your last tournament was like, right? In your own mind, obviously, you have confidence in yourself, but just like an athlete, you've got to go and do the next one as well or better, right?
You really have to have a thick skin.
Yeah.
Mike, last night we were talking about it, having a thick skin, and two, it's, you make a bad call. We make bad calls. It's going to happen no matter, You can have video review. They can throw out as many bricks as you want. Somebody's going to miss a call. It's just human nature. But you've got to be able to move on, so then the next time, 10 minutes later or 7 minutes later, you don't make another bad call. It's hopefully you just, it was a mistake, and, it didn't cost the kid a match, but it's just part of they're trying to get it perfect, and it'll never be perfect. It's with our sport, there's, as I've been told, it's, our book is black and white, but we referee in the gray.
Yeah. Heck, and now they're throwing a lot of rule changes at you guys, right?
Yeah, I feel sorry for Mike McCormick. He's got a lot of fixing, that he's got to do. It's because some of it is I agree with, some of it I disagree with. We look like traffic cops out there trying to signal, and it's just you can't do that with these athletes. They're too fast and too good, and they're moving, from move to move to move, and I think that's what's hurting the sport now, is because it's, the video review. I hate to say it, but they should put a time limit on it. If you can't decide or change it, or have third party can't decide or change it, then leave it.
Yeah.
That 20 minutes.
Yeah. This year was a little extreme, right?
And it's, even if you have 5 bricks or 3 bricks, or how many bricks you got left, if you've only got one kid in the final, there should be a limit on the number of bricks you can use in a match. If it's just some of these teams save their bricks up and then throw them, just, I can't take it home, is what a couple of coaches have told me. So they're throwing it over, and it ruins the mood in the venue, and it's half the time you're thinking to yourself, and you're wondering, what's he want to look at? It was pretty cut and dry. So I think there's some critiquing and of some small things in the sport, from my opinion, that could be done that would enhance it. And
And we're all wrestling folks. We want it to be the best it can
Yep.
be, right? Not just the athletes and coaches, but clearly the officials want our sport to get better and better, right? I mean, you wouldn't be spending the time and effort to build the sport if you didn't have that commitment, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. What was it like when you got the call that you were going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame as a meritorious official? I mean, this is an honor that only a person gets once in their life, and it only happens to one person a year, you know?
Actually, when I got a call from Mr. Smith, I was driving, and he said, "This is Leroy Smith," and I said, "Get out of here," and I almost hung up. Because a lot of people don't know it, but the referees do play a lot of pranks on each other. We have to do things to keep our time occupied when we're not out on the mat. But I truly did think it was a joke. Even after we talked for a while, I thought, you got to be kidding me. I remember calling Mike McCormick, and I was waiting for him to say, "I got you," or whatever. And I said, "Hey, this is what just happened." And when he said congratulations, that's when it actually hit me.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, wow.
That was really Leroy. It wasn't someone sound like Leroy.
Yeah, that's when he said, "Yeah, that was legit." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I said, "Mike, I almost hung up on him." He said, "Thank God you didn't."
You got some family and friends here this weekend?
Yes, sir. I have my wife, Lisa, and my oldest daughter, Bree, and my youngest daughter, Alexis.
Awesome.
So we're enjoying it. They've been great. They've been.
Oh yeah, and it's just going to get better. A few more things today, and then tomorrow's, Tux time, right?
Yep. Actually, they should be getting this award, not me. They've given up a lot of weekends, nights, and personal time they've let me chase my love of the sport, and it never asked for, they've never told me, "Hey, can you skip this tournament this weekend?" Even when my wife was pregnant with my oldest, I was at the Virginia Duels, and they made a call, and I was on a mat, and Mike and his dad said, "You need to drive home."
Yep.
So I drove straight to the hospital, and while my wife was going through delivery, and thank God I made it on time. Let's put it that way. So it was, but they've been unbelievably supportive of everything